Hi, welcome to Victoria's European Bistro. I'm Victoria Connolly, proprietor of Victoria's Wine and Dine in downtown Oxford. I have my sous chef Logan Roth with me today, and we thought that we would love to show you some European-inspired cuisine. I know right now it's kind of tough to travel, and all of us are anxious to get to those fun places and get our passports out, but for right now, I think we're just going to do a little armchair traveling and a little cooking. My cooking style's always been influenced by the cuisine of Europe, whether it was France, Italy, Spain. You know, there's just so much fun cuisine to explore. Today, what I wanted to do for you was something that might be found in a traditional Paris bistro. Our Oxford restaurant's under renovation, and we're just getting ready here to open this month, and my goal was to take you away to a true Parisian bistro. So I'm excited to have you see what we have done to the place, and but to get your palate going here, I thought we'd get cooking today a little bit. We have one of my favorite dishes, Trout Almondine, and I thought I'd show you just a couple things. Most European style of cooking is really true to the ingredients, so the focus is more on the ingredients and an easy preparation style. I think sometimes people are intimidated by European cuisine, and it's not so intimidating as long as you know the basics. And I think our main principle is going to be to source those great ingredients. That's what's going to make a good meal. I have a quick French vinaigrette for you. I think that making your own salad dressings is one of the great places to start. It's really easy. You're going to notice a nice clean flavor. A lot of those bottled dressings have some preservatives in them and some things, and sometimes I can almost even get a little taste of that. It's like a little tinny kindness at the end of the dressing. So I have a quick vinaigrette we're going to put together. I have 2 tablespoons of chopped shallots. Now a shallot's something that's kind of like a cross between maybe a garlic and a small onion. It has a unique flavor. If you can't find shallots, a red onion would be fine, but the shallots are pretty easy to find. When I do my ingredients, my recipes, I like to make sure all those ingredients are pretty easy to source. So these things should be found in your local grocery stores, whether it's Meijer's or Kroger's in Lake Orion. So shallots. I have 2 tablespoons of red or white wine vinegar. At one of my cooking classes I did, we made this cool herb vinegar, and it has a white wine base, a little bit of tarragon, a little bit of parsley. So I'm going to use that today, and we're going to do 2 tablespoons of that. You know, I think just plain distilled white vinegar is just too harsh. So you either want to do an apple cider. If you like balsamic, feel free to use a balsamic. 1/4 teaspoon of fine sea salt. So I have a little Himalayan sea salt grinder here, and I'm just going to get a little salt in there. 2 teaspoons of Dijon mustard. So I've got a little Dijon mustard squirty bottle, which kind of makes it a little easier. I mean, you know what I like to do is I like to just do a little bit of oil in my measuring cup, because that way that Dijon's just going to slide right out on us. Sometimes when we're working with like honey or maple syrup or something sticky, see how it just kind of slid right out of the so we're going to do 2 teaspoons of Dijon. And this isn't really an exact recipe, so if you like your vinaigrettes a little bit more acidic, feel free to use a little more vinegar. The mustard's really an important part in it because it's a binder. It's going to help keep that dressing from separating, so we really want to get that Dijon in there. We're going to do about 4 to 6 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. You know, when you go shopping, you're up north, Traverse City, something like that, and there's all these fancy oil shops and vinegar shops, that's when you want to use these vinegars. You want to use those vinegars in your dressings because you're not cooking them, the flavor's staying really true. So this is kind of a fun place if you've bought any of those kind of specialty oil and vinegars. We're going to do a little fresh ground pepper to taste. And like I said, when we're talking about the integrity of ingredients, the fresh ground is great. You know, you can even get the little, I've seen them in Meijer's, just the little single disposable pepper and salt grinders. Now I cheat a little bit. You can whisk this up in a bowl and emulsify it or put it in a blender. And I like to do it in a mason jar because I can just shake it, and that's going to get it. We're going to give it a good shake, but that's going to emulsify that dressing. Now this will last in your refrigerator for at least a week. You know, we're just really talking about oil, vinegar, and a little mustard here. But you'll be so surprised how clean and fresh that this is going to taste in this salad. So I've just got some spring greens here. I like to use the spring mix. This is a traditional European kind of style salad. We've got some dandelion greens in there, some oak, some radicchio. So, you know, if you're an iceberg lettuce person, you got to get out of your comfort zone here and try some of these things. And I don't know, for health benefits, the darker the greens, the better they are for you. And I think we really want to get more and more vegetables into our diet. True Europeans eat the salad last, but I'm a salad first person. So we're going to go ahead and get this going. Just have a little bit of grape cherry tomatoes, some carrots, and some red onions. And then we're just going to toss this salad with a little bit of our dressing. Oh, look, beautiful. Just emulsified perfect. That's what I said. Who needs that whisk when you can shake? I'm going to toss it up. And I'm going to have Logan dish up our salad while I get everything ready to show you the Trout Almondine. Hi, welcome back. I'm Victoria, Victoria's Wine and Dine. Logan and I are moving on to our main course today, and I can't wait to show you the Trout Almondine. This was one of the first dishes I had when I was in Europe. I spent a summer, between I think the 8th and 9th grade. I spent a summer with my aunt, and she lived in France on the Switzerland border, and traveled through Europe and had a wonderful time, and I've always thought those early memories inspired me to keep with the European flavors. So, and this was one of my first dishes in a fancy European restaurant, in a bistro. So, rainbow trout almondine, we're going to start by getting some oil in our pan and getting our pan hot. So we've got a 12-inch saute. The recipe we're going to do today is going to be enough for 2 people. So we want to get about 5 tablespoons of oil in our pan. And we're going to put that on the stove. That's going to take, we're going to go about medium heat, and that's going to take us about a minute or 2 to get that oil hot. We want to get it hot but not smoking, so it should have some heat coming off of it and a little bit of a shimmer. So we've got some seasoned flour here, and what it is 1 cup of all-purpose flour with a little bit of pinch of salt and pepper in it. And I have 2 6-ounce rainbow trout fillets. I think that our Myers in Oxford does a really nice job at their seafood counters, so you should be able to find some trout or something similar. But what we want is some thin fillets, preferably with the skin on. We could do this maybe with whitefish or a walleye, even perhaps like a sole or a flounder. But we want a thin piece of fish. We don't want tuna, swordfish, salmon, anything chunky. We want something super thin because we're going to do a little quick saute on it. So we're going to get these in this flour, and we want to make sure we get them coated well. So we're just kind of dredging them. Now, if you're gluten-free, we have used gluten-free flour in this recipe, and it had good results with it. So, but we want to make sure we really get that flour on there, both sides. And let's check on our oil load. What do you think? Is it hot yet?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, so we want to make sure that we're going to shake off the excess off of the fillets, and we're going to go gently into the pan. You should hear a little bit of a sizzle, and we're going to go, we call it in the restaurant business presentation side down, but it's going to be flesh side down. So we're putting the best side down first so that when we turn it, we're going to have this beautiful presentation on the fish. Now, we've got, in order not to really crowd the pan, we're going to go kind of head to tail, on this so there's enough room. So the tail end is going to be that narrow end where the fillet is the thinnest. So now we've got about 10 minutes cook time on this over a medium heat, and I thought Logan and I could talk a little bit about blanching beans because that's going to be one of our accompaniments with this. And I think blanching is kind of one of those restaurant secrets that maybe, you know, somebody that's just starting to cook, it's kind of a mysterious thing. A little bit about blanching beans because that's going to be one of our accompaniments with this. And I think blanching is kind of one of those restaurant secrets that maybe, you know, somebody that's just starting to cook, it's kind of a mysterious thing. We blanch our asparagus, we blanch our beans. The technique is to get that really bright green color and preserve that color. I don't know if you've ever tried to cook asparagus or beans for Thanksgiving or for a fancy meal, and by the time it's done, it's kind of this weird army green color, and it just doesn't really pop on the plate. So by blanching, it locks in that color. So we've got some water boiling back here. And this is something you can do ahead of time. In fact, even if you could even do it a day ahead of time, because this is kind of, to me, this is a kind of a Saturday night recipe, something for date night or a little fancy even for company. So you could get the beans done, get that stress out of your way. Water's going to come to a boil. I'm going to put Logan in charge of the beans so he can keep an eye on the water. Then we're going to boil them. Oh, it's probably going to be, I think, 2 to 3 minutes. It depends on the size of the beans. And then I always, to me, how I know they're done is I always take a bean out and kind of test it and take a little bite of it. And it should have just like a little bit of a crunch still to it, but cooked. So you don't feel like you're eating a raw bean, but it's still got a little bit because we're going to end up sauteing it in the pan. I love, because we're talking about kind of our French Paris thing, I have some tender French green beans. They're also referred to as haricots verts, which is just a kind of a fancy word for green bean. That's literally the translation on it. But these are fresh beans, and this is back to talking about the quality of ingredients, and I think you're going to find that a common thread through all the European cuisines. It's getting fresh ingredients when you can, ingredients that are in season, and cooking them to make that ingredient really shine. We're going to check on our trout here. It's sizzling right away. It's going to start to get a little bit of kind of a crust around the edges when it's done, but we did time it so that we could give you an exact time. And in our pan, on our heat, 10 minutes. So we'll take a look at that as that gets a little closer. I'm really excited because I want to share what I've learned and some of the experiences with you. And it's just not the food, it's, you know, it's the whole culture. And I think it's so fun when we travel because we explore, you know, we try things that we've never tried, and it pushes us out of our comfort zone and gets us into trying some new recipes. Paris is just like just a magical place. I can't wait to try to recreate it here in downtown Oxford. Kind of think of it as a little tiny mini Epcot, but it's bustling, it's happy, it's fun. On the beans, I think we're about ready to go. So Log, if you want to go ahead. So when I first had this dish, it came to me with the head and the tail and everything on it. And I was probably about 14 years old. And I was a little taken aback. And Europe was a little bit overwhelming at the time because I didn't speak the language fluently, but my cousins and my aunt and uncle had lived there for years. And this was right there, this trout, head, tail, fins, the whole 9 yards. But when I actually had a little taste of it, oh my gosh, it was just wonderful. I grew up eating fresh fish. My family had a cottage in northern Wisconsin, so we fished all the time. Trout, sometimes we would eat trout for breakfast. Same kind of little thing like this, just kind of a little quick pan fry saute. So that's why we wanted to get not so much oil in there, because we're not deep frying this or pan frying it. We're giving it a light saute. Now we want to make sure that we're kind of pushing that oil around in the pan too, so that it's getting, it's hitting all parts of the fish. And if you notice, I've got the fish kind of separated so we don't crowd the pan. That's going to help with the heat distribution. It's almost there. Hey Logue, I know that you cook this recipe in the restaurant every night. It's one of course, because I brought it with me because it's one of my favorites, and he has just taken a really a hold of it and done it just perfect every time. Why do you like this recipe?
Like what you said originally, it's a focus on the simpler ingredients. There's not too much involved, and it still turns out very good. The browning of the butter it really matches with the lemon. And I'm not a huge fish person, but this is definitely one of my favorite fish recipes.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Especially this is coming out, you know, when we're using this rainbow trout, this is coming out of Idaho Springs and also can be found in the Colorado area. So we're using a Michigan or United States product here on this fish that shouldn't have been frozen. I mean, if you have to, you can't find it. Like I said, even tilapia will work with this, but I think that the subtleties and the flavors match very well with a freshwater fish. Cast iron skillet, if that's your pan of choice, is also a good one for this recipe because it does hold the heat and gets nice and hot. I like to use kind of something with a non-stick skillet for this, or non-stick surface for this, because we really want to be able to flip this fish without jeopardizing that presentation side. What do you think?
I think the beans are just about done.
A little bit longer?
Just a little bit, but you can tell with the back of the skin bubbling right here that it's getting done. The more it crispens, it'll start showing on that back on the skin side. But our beans are done.
You know, and so our beans are done. And what we want to do, this is the important part of blanching, is we're going to go ahead and get them into an ice bath. So that's basically ice and cold water, and that's what's going to shock them. That's the part that's going to lock that flavor in. So pretty easy. He's transferring them over to the ice bath, and then we're going to start. I have some that we blanched earlier. Since our trout's just about getting done, I'm going to go ahead and put these on the heat. So we're just going to add a little bit of water to it. There's a little bit of salt and pepper. They're only going to take a minute or two tops, because we've done about 3/4 of the cooking on them, so we're just rewarming them up for the service. And that's when I was saying, you know, we could get those pre-cooked ahead of time, put them in the fridge, do all the blanching, so the next day when you do prepare the recipe, you don't have that stress on you. Not that. How do they look, Logue? Did you try one? Oh, you got your mask on. So he cooks them every day, so I think he's got a pretty good idea of when they're done. Let's see, can you pull a couple up and see how that beautiful bright green color? And that's what we're looking for. And you're not going to get that unless you blanch and shock. So this is the blanch and that's the shock. See how our fish is doing? Oh, I think it's ready to go. So we're going to just carefully turn it over. I think you want to get in here if you have a fish spatula, here's a good place for it, but if you use your tongs, get in there on that thick side so it doesn't break on you. Turn the heat off. Now, if for some reason you have a little excess oil in the pan, we want to drain that off, because basically what we're doing is making a pan sauce. So I have a little piece of foil. I usually just push it right on a little foil boat that I've made so I can wrap that up and throw that in the garbage. So now we want to go in with our butter while that pan's nice and hot. I have 3 tablespoons of butter cut in these little cubes. So I got 6 cubes. Cubes are about the size of a dice. We don't want to go on the fish with this. We want to go into the pan, because we want it to hit that heat and make that sauce. It's going to foam up. This is kind of a traditional brown butter sauce. So once the butter starts to melt and it's kind of subsiding a little bit, we're going to go in with some almonds. And I've got some slivered almonds. And the heat from that pan, that butter is going to kind of toast these almonds up. So we're going to sprinkle those almonds in around our trout. I've got a tablespoon of capers. Capers are going to add like a nice bright acidity to this. The capers are actually a little flower bud. It's a bush that's grown in the Mediterranean, and the caper itself is a little bud, and they pickle it. Kind of the taste reminds me a little bit of olives. And then we're going to do a couple squeezes of lemon right over our fish. Give my beans a little shake here. Okay, I think we're ready to plate. So, let me get this out of the way. To serve a starch with all my meals. So whether it's a pasta, a rice, a potato, something like that. I've made a little bit of wild rice today. Logan, if you want to grab that for me, I have it in the oven. I would also do maybe little new potatoes with this, some tiny baby potatoes. But we're going to go ahead, and if you want to go ahead and put the rice on for me. I'm a big rice grain person. You know, we do an heirloom grain blend at the restaurant, and I actually get it shipped from Minnesota. So we're going to take our trout and gently, and we don't want to break it, we're gently going to put it on top of that rice. Then we're going to drizzle with our pan sauce with the capers and the lemon. And let's get a little spatula in here. We'll get all that pan goodness out of there. All right. Well, you want to do the parsley? Parsley's a big part of this dish, and I like to put the parsley on last because it's got that nice, fresh herbal quality to it. So we get a little parsley on there. Some of our haricots verts, kind of on the side. We just did a little pan saute on those. They stayed that nice, held their color, and should be nice and still a little firm to the bite. Oh, and then, you know, we like to wipe our plates and make it like perfect. So, Lo, we call it, you know, put the little final touch on there and get it presentation perfect. I think on this one we want to serve it with a little extra lemon wedge, don't you, Logan? Because it kind of brightens it up. So I'll grab this plate and give us a nice big lemon wedge. Now I'm going to just grab my wine because the reason they call it wine and dine is we've got some wine in there. My recommendation for tonight's meal is a Sauvignon Blanc. And this is called Les Rocs, and it means the rocks. And this is actually coming from the Languedoc region in France. Because Les Rocs, it refers to the mineral quality in this wine. The grapes are grown in kind of a gravelly soil, so it imparts that, they call it terroir, and that is that the wine actually takes on the flavor of the land where the grapes are grown. So it's going to be wonderful, bright, acidic, and just complement our trout like perfect. So I've got a glass of that. This is available by the glass, by the bottle. We also do have a retail wine club if anyone would be interested, but I think this is going to be a perfect meal.
All right.
Bon appetit.